So you could have an absolute steal on your hands.
Yeah, well, I've got a better one, Mitch. So wind your neck in. Is there only one place to shop at the tight end position this week?
You say Taysom Hill, James.
I'm not saying Taysom Hill. I'm not going to die on that hill. No, I'm not saying Taysom Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks and football fans everywhere, a very warm welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to our fantasy segment, our brand new fantasy segment that we're launching in the past few weeks. I hope you enjoyed the first one. If you gave it a listen, if not, please do still go and give it a listen. There's still some tips and tricks that you'll be able to pick up and some stuff to learn about the game that'll be valuable for you all moving forward. This is obviously in partnership with our brand new partners, Fantasy Gameday, and of course we've got Gurmeet with us tonight from Fantasy Gameday as well. So before I introduce my co-host, Gurmeet, how are you, my friend?
Very good. Thank you for having me back on, James.
Not a problem in the world. Smashed it last week. And really looking forward
to it. I was happy with a couple of my picks.
I bet you were.
Not so good, but
yeah, I bet you were. I wasn't so happy with a few of mine, but that's in the past. That's all ancient history now. Mitch, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, very good. Obviously, you missed me yesterday on the main pod.
We did.
But I'm feeling very good, especially after returning to winning ways this week. Seeing a few of our rookies do well, you know, is always my focus on the rookies, and we saw some great stuff. So feeling really positive going into our next game, and happy to be talking about fantasy and who I'm going to be picking this weekend, because there are some huge games, and there feels like some jeopardy with some of these players. You know, some of the guys that usually score the big points are having some difficult games, so we'll get right into that, I'm sure. But feeling very good.
Yeah, some interesting matchups this week. Pez, our fancy connoisseur, making his debut on the fancy connoisseur, I'm sure he reckons he is anyway, making his debut on the We Talk Seahawks fantasy segment. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. High expectations. I just like my fantasy.
I know you do.
Well, I won't after this weekend when we play each other and I get absolutely battered, but
oh yeah, there's a little insight that me and Pez are on a matchup this week in our other fantasy league. Plenty of shit talking going on this week. So I'll see you next week. I'll see you for the recording next week. That's all I'm going to say.
I won't see you.
Oh, you won't see me. Oh, good. Do a John Cena impression then. Tonight, it's going to be a good one. We're going to go again, position by position, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, flexers, captains, all that good stuff, putting our ideas out there, maybe swaying you on a certain player that you weren't swayed on before, stuff like that. We don't claim to be experts. We are seasoned fantasy players, but we're by no means experts. Put it this way, I've probably only won one or two fantasy leagues in my life. I mean, you know, this isn't gospel coming at you. Quarterbacks then, the big position, the main position, some interesting options as there is every week at quarterback. Some big money movers. Your Jalen Hurts is in here. Your Patrick Mahomes is in here. I like a more value quarterback. I just do. I'm from the northeast of England. I try and find value anywhere I can get it. And I found it in another quarterback this week, £5,300. Hasn't made the best start to fantasy this week, or this season, I should say, but he's got a very favourable matchup, in my opinion, in the LA Rams this week, and that's Dak Prescott. He's a quarterback that I like. I think are you shaking your head there, Pez, already? Never you mind my quarterback. No, lad. Listen, there's just some weeks Prescott scores. You know, he scored 24 in week 6. He has the potential with the weapons on that Cowboys offense to just play well and tick over and get you that 18 to 22 kind of point range. And against the Rams, like I say, 20th in opposition ranking is the LA Rams in terms of they are 20th worst against the quarterback. So they're in the bottom tier, and you know, he's got some points to prove. He's got some way of expectation that he needs to show he can handle. Some big question marks starting to be asked now about Dak Prescott, and I fancy him to have a good game this week. And if he has a bad game, then I do apologise, and Pez will be right, of course he is. But yeah, Mitch, what do you think?
Well, I thought you were going to go with my guy because you said 5,300. My guy's going to be Kirk Cousins. And you're shaking your head, but I felt the same way with yours. So one of us is going to be right, and we'll talk about that next week because we're both talking the same price bracket. I think Kirk Cousins will have a good game against Green Bay. I think that's a good match. That's equally as good a matchup for him as the Rams are for Dallas. I think that's great value for a guy who, until the last 2 weeks, was leading the league, I think, in either in yards or touchdowns. I think Tua went past him a couple of weeks back. It might have been Tua. But either way, Kirk Cousins having a good year. 5,300 is a snip. That matchup is favourable. And what better for your confidence in as a quarterback than beating the Niners last week?
It's a fair point. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, very hit and miss, but you know what? I'll side with you. He could be hit this week, and like you say, some interesting things coming out about Kirk. Will they trade him? Will they not? I don't think they will, because there's no trade clause on his big contract. But obviously not an ideal situation there in Minnesota. So it's a risky play. But hey, you go big or go home with fantasy, as we always say. Pez, what are you thinking quarterback wise this week?
Lamar Jackson. I'm guessing he's going to be a big price against the Cardinals.
100.
He's about what?
He's 6,900, and the most expensive quarterback is Jalen Hurts at 8,700.
Right. What's Russell Wilson this week?
4,900.
You want some saver value against the Chiefs?
Really?
No, I'm going to go Lamar. Good. Go big. Go expensive on your quarterback. Lamar against the Cardinals, I think you will make all that money you spend on him.
Okay, yeah. Lamar, like I said, one of the best quarterback fantasy options. Always reliable as long as he's healthy. And yeah, another good matchup for him potentially. Gurmeet, what are you thinking quarterback wise?
So I had 3 quarterbacks on my list. Number 1 was Lamar Jackson. Number 2 was Kirk Cousins. And number 3 was Dak Prescott. So,
Great minds.
Fortunately, I added a 4th because I had a worry that this could happen. So my 4th, I much prefer all 3 of yours for the record. But mine will be Joe Burrow at 5,700. Just bridging the gap in price between Lamar and Kirk. I think Burrow just started to find his feet before their bye week. He's coming off the bye week fresh. Jamar Chase is on fire. And they've got a tough matchup against the Niners. Having said that, I've just watched Kirk Cousins absolutely light up that Niners D. If Kirk can do it, Burrow can do it. So I'll stick with Joe Burrow at 5,000.
Great shout.
Interesting. Go on, Pez.
Can we just chuck in some sleeper type?
Yeah, if you've got.
Chris, go ahead.
The Chiefs' defense has been playing really well, but I still think Russell Wilson. If you really want to go cheap on your quarterback, I don't think he is a bad shout. And one to just monitor is Kyler Murray. He's practiced in full.
Mm-hmm.
He might get started. I don't think he will, but keep an eye on it because depending on if the price doesn't reflect him starting, that's on Gurmeet to keep an eye on that. But if the price doesn't reflect him, you might be able to get a little steal on your hands there.
I just one I'll chuck in there. I quite like Bryce Young this week at 4,100. I know Bryce Young very up and down, but averaging around about 12 fantasy points per game, and he has had some slightly better scores than that. Obviously, 18 points in 1 week. He's coming off a bye week as well. Potentially had time to watch some more film, get a little bit healthier. And against a Houston defense that isn't great, 22nd against the quarterback. So Bryce Young sneaky one there on a real bargain bucket deal. Any other sneaky quarterback options, or are we happy with those?
I'd pick if you wanted to save money on your quarterback, one of them two. I think it could just end up into a bit of a dust up.
Yeah. Yep, fair point. Running backs, as we said before the pod, we're going to go reverse order this week. So we're going to start with you, Gurmeet. Again, interesting week for the running backs because heading into the week at the time recording, quite a few noticeable running backs, either with questionable injury designations, not practicing, a few big players, potentially game time decisions, few few right up to the deadlines potentially that we're going to have to, if you've got McCaffrey, he may well be a game time decision. Mostert, people like these, Kamara. Who are you thinking for this week, Gurmeet?
You just mentioned him, Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
£5,700. And just to give everyone an idea of that price, so to put it into context, McCaffrey's 8,100. So Kamara 5,700. He's averaged 21.7 fantasy points since he's come back from his suspension. And I watched the Saints game last week, and Derek Carr is just dumping the ball off to him. Like, they don't even have a plan on offense. It's just chuck it to Kamara. Not great for the NFL, but it's great for fantasy football. So, I mean, I think no matter what happens with Kamara, as long as he stays healthy throughout the game, he's going to pick up like 18 points just out of nowhere. So I'm very happy to go first with the running backs and to get my player locked in.
Nice, good pick. He is potentially in one of my lineups already this week if he's fit to go. So I do like that pick, and like I say that Indianapolis defense against the run not great this season, so potential for more big points coming from Kamara. Pez, who are you thinking running backs wise this week?
I got really excited because I had one, but he's playing on Monday Night Football, so I'm going to have to quickly swerve from that. I think Isaiah Pacheco will be good. Again, How much is he?
Pacheco is 5,100.
Not bad.
It's not bad. Big week last week, I think. Did he? Yeah, he did.
16 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Pacheco.
Nice.
At a relatively probably cheap price compared to some of these other running backs who got really nice matchups.
Yeah, it's a nice price, nice bargain there potentially. Mitch, who are you thinking?
So I'm scared to talk about mine today because I think as soon as I mention the price, Gurmeet's going to scurry to put the price up. So if you scroll,
they're fixed.
It's
good. They get released at the start of the week. Actually, that's a great point, and it's quite a useful thing to talk about. When the prices are released on the Tuesday, they're fixed. Locked. They're locked. Doesn't matter whether the handcuff. If it's a handcuff running back and the main guy is ruled out, their prices stay the same. So that's a great point, actually.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Jonathan Taylor has returned, right? And the first week he was back, he scored 4 points. Second week, 11.5. Last week, 21. They are ramping up his snaps. But do you know what? No one's ramping up his price because still £3,100 on the app. And that is a guy who's doubled his production week on week since his return. There's no way after their performance against the Browns and his performance against the Browns that they are not continuing to put the ball in his hands, whether it's a handoff from the quarterback or whether it's through the air, because they target him as well with the throwing game. And 3,100 is absurd, by the way. So make sure you get Jonathan Taylor in your lineups.
Are you not concerned about the Saints defense?
That's why his price is probably the way it is. But I agree. I think he's underpriced.
The reason, it's a really good point there, Pez. His price is down because of that Saints defense. But don't forget that they hit him with the throwing game as well. They use him as an offensive weapon, like Bijan Robinson at the Falcons. He is utilized as a weapon rather than solely as a running back. And they will be trying to get the best out of him to break down that D.
And just to chuck something on top of that, Zach Moss is questionable. So he could literally have the backfield to himself.
There you go.
So you could have an absolute steal on your hands.
Yeah. Well, I've got a better one, Mitch. So wind your neck in. Gus Edwards, 3,700 for the Baltimore Ravens against the Cardinals this week. Coming off a very big week against Detroit, 21 points. It's not just the points, because you look back after that, he had a 6 game, a 4.8 game, 6.9, but look at his attempts in those games, 16, 12, 15, 11. He's getting a lot of the ball. He's getting a lot of carries. Obviously, it's a PPR system as well. And he is a threat in the receiving game too. 80 yards receiving last game as well on that monster play. So I quite like Gus Edwards as a 3,700 if you've maybe gone overboard on your receiver or your quarterback and you want a cheaper running back to help bring the average player price remaining down. And Gus Edwards fills that for me. If you want a top hitter this week, I'd maybe say Travis Etienne for 6,100 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's playing lights out football this season, isn't he? He would be my top end pick if I was splashing the cash on a running back. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a few. Breece Hall against the Giants, PPR especially. I think he could have a monster game, and you have him, James. So I'm trying to do some reverse psychology here in our matchup, bringing in a bit of other fantasy. Everyone go and get him, so then he does nothing. And I've got something, not one to pick, one to be questionable whether you want to spend up on, and that's Christian McCaffrey. For how much he is, after watching him in the last game where, he got his 2 touchdowns. For fantasy, it's a bit hard. He did enough for fantasy. So in this kind of thing, but I just think he struggled in his last game in the actual game for how he normally does. And just remembering how the Bengals played the Seahawks quite well on the defensive line. Just be wary if you're going to spend, what was it, 8,000 was his top price?
Yeah, 8,100.
I not like Lamar because my negative on Gus Edwards is I think Lamar's going to have a really good game in that game. I think he's going to have another monster running game, and he's just going to take away Gus Edwards' his potential point scoring ability, because I think he's got the bit in his teeth now after this last game against the Lions. I think he's just going to start steamrolling teams by himself. So whereas Lamar will probably hit his value, I worry that Christian McCaffrey might get stopped by that D-line of the Bengals, especially coming off the bye. So Austin Eckler, if his injury isn't too bad, he'll be a really good play against the Bears. I think he'll have a really good bounce back game. And ETN was the other one I was going to mention as well.
Yeah, like it. Wide receivers, again, potentially no Tyreek Hill this week. We'll see what happens with him. So one of the big point scorers in fantasy potentially not available for you at the wide receiver position, but there are plenty of other good options. I've got a vendetta against Cooper Kupp for letting me down last week as my captain, so he's not being my pick this week. I do like the look of a CD Lamb at £4,900 against the LA Rams. Now, the Rams are 5th against the wide receiver and in Fantasy Gameday's app, so potentially not a great matchup, but CD Lamb consistently gets good targets, coming off a good game before the bye week that the Cowboys had with an 18.7 result against the Chargers. Only once this season so far on Fantasy Gameday has he failed to score double-digit points, and that was against the 49ers in Week 5, so I think you can forgive him for that. But you've seen other returns of 14, 25, and then 18 against the Chargers. So I like CeeDee Lamb at that price point to say, do you know what? That's fairly cheap. It's not a big hitter, and that means I can spread my money around a bit better in other positions if I wanted to go bigger on the quarterback. And I've still got CD Lamb, who has every potential to get you a 20-point plus game at that price range this week. So my pick would be CD Lamb. We'll go back to you, Mitch, and work our way back to Gurmeet.
Sure. So I'm going to be a bit of a homer here, and I'm going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba. And the reason being, we talked about it before we were on air here, a little bit about what the Indianapolis Colts did to expose the Browns, and they'll know that our strengths, as you know, the Seahawks' strengths will be getting the ball over the top to Lockett and DK, and Pez also pointed out that they've had some problems protecting the slot. Now, if they're going to stop Tyler and DK over the top, they're going to further expose the middle. And if they expose the middle, they've got a superb rookie wide receiver, fresh off the back of a breakout game for us last week. And he is currently priced at a very, very reasonable 2,000 and something. I feel like it was 2,900. Can anyone anyone confirm or deny that was
900, 3,100?
3,100. So marginally more than I thought, but still a fantastic price there. I think if you spend 3,100 on a wide receiver in your team, you're quite content with anywhere in between 8 to 12 points. And I think this week you could be looking at a little bit more than that from JSN in this game. So Jackson Smith and Jigba for me.
Interesting. Always a bit of a boom or bust player going forward, but I like it. Pez?
I've got a few. Just deciding which one to really put my hat on, to be honest. Without seeing the prices, I think Adam Thielen will be good against the Texans.
He's got a slightly higher price this week than previous weeks, but I guess that's probably why.
4,700.
He's still good for it, though. The points he's been putting up this year, way worth that money.
Another one I'd chuck out there, just to see how much his price is, because he's not really had that big game yet, is Christian Watson.
Christian Watson is 3,700.
Is he healthy? I saw that he got an injury at the end of the game last week.
No, yeah, he's back into full training on Wednesday. It will come. Just remember last year with Christian Watson, he had the hamstring issues, and everyone was like, oh, he's going to be a bust, he's going to be a bust, he's going to be a bust. 3 touchdowns, bloody 200 yards. Where did that come from? And then he was going. He just needs his one game to get him going. And against the Vikings, I can't think of a better matchup for Jordan Love to get himself straight. Use Christian Watson. So
decent shout. Gurmeet?
I'm going in the bargain bucket for my...
Nothing wrong with that.
2,900, Cortland Sutton. He's quietly been making some good plays. Like he's catching some incredible touchdowns. They're playing the Chiefs. I mean, they're going to be playing from behind. So it could just be a case that Sutton gets a load of garbage time points. But for fantasy, it all counts. I mean, that's a really low price. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor being cheap. I think Sutton at 2,900, cheaper than JSN. Even at that price, if he gets double-digit fantasy points, you can make up with a superstar team elsewhere with our pricing on the app. So I'd stick him in as my second wide receiver quite happily at that price.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's some really good options if you look further down the receiver board this week. There's
no bye weeks this week as well, so we've got so many options on the app. Last week there were 6 teams on a bye, so there's an abundance this time.
Can I just chuck out a few names?
Of course you can.
I've just got a list in my head quickly and see what you think. Devonta Smith for the Eagles. I feel like this could be a game. His last game where he scored double-digit points was against the Commanders. Mm-hmm. I think they will focus as much as they possibly can to stop A.J. Brown because he's an unstoppable force. A.J. Brown's another one because he's an unstoppable force. No matter what price he is, he's going to bring that value back to you. The Steelers and the Jags is an absolute dream fest for a wide receiver. Christian Kirk. I'd even chuck Calvin Ridley in there if you like, spent up big on other places. And Calvin Ridley, I would imagine, is a small price because he's not done that well. Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Pickens on the other side. Maybe Deontay Johnson if he's got that game back and healthy because he's a PPR machine. Is Daniel Jones back for the Giants? Do we know?
I think he is.
Because if he is, Wan'Dale Robinson is a good shout in a PPR. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. You can literally go through every single game. Kendrick Bourne for the Patriots.
You haven't mentioned Jake Bobo though. Jake Bobo scored loads of points for me last week.
DK's back, so Jake Bobo is gonna slot back into his blocking lead block role. That's for the main pod, but maybe in Rookie Watch. In Rookie Watch, I'll talk more about that. I'm not going to take any time up in this.
I just say this about Jake Bobo, right? The Seahawks are having some red zone issues. Jake Bobo has proven to be a really valuable asset, and if they're scheming up some some plays for the red zone. I expect to see players like Colby Parkinson and Jake Bobo used as the unexpected target for red zone plays when Lockett and JSN and Noah Fant and players like that are covered. Players like that are the kinds you can sneak in, and Jake Bobo's proven twice this year now that when it comes to dragging toes and tiptoeing into end zones, he's got all those skills to bank your points. So the price he's at, I think 2,700 for Bobo, fresh off a 16-point week. I think it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real if you've overspent, like Pez said, on some star players, and you're just picking your last spot, maybe it's the flex. 2,700 for Jake Bobo is a good way to spend it.
Yeah, good shout. Boom or bust again as always, but potentially rewarded if you go there with him. Tight ends. This is either very cut and paste, or we might have some interesting opinions on tight end. Gurmeet, is there only one place to shop at the tight end position this week?
Again, for context, Travis Kelce's obviously the most expensive tight end. That, spoiler alert, will be the case every single week this season when the Chiefs are in action. So Kelce's 6,900, just to give some context to the price of the player I'm choosing. And I'm going with Mark Andrews at 3,700. And I feel that
3,700.
I think that's incredible value. I would have thought he'd be perhaps the second or third most expensive tight end. He's not. They're playing Arizona, and I think the fact that the Cardinals have actually been really good against the tight end reflects on his price. I don't care. Andrews is an incredible player. Zay Flowers has eaten into his production a little bit because Zay Flowers is that good. But we talked about Lamar and how well he played last week. I think Lamar will play great again this week. And he's going to go to Zay or Andrews at 3,700. I'm very happy with that pick as well.
Yeah, that seems a very safe pick. Like you say, even though the Cardinals have been good against the tight end, at the end of the day, I think the Ravens are going to be on offense a lot. They're going to be seeing the field a lot. That's a lot of targets, a lot of looks for Mark Andrews. So at that price, very, very hard to say no to that. Pez, what are you thinking at tight end?
The first thought I had was TJ Hockenson.
Interesting.
Against the Packers, I think. What's his price?
4,100.
Is he? Surprised about that. What price is Evan Ingram? Just out of interest.
3,700.
Same as Andrews.
Then I wouldn't pick Evan Ingram over Andrews. Andrews is an absolute steal, in my opinion, because I don't think the Cardinals are going to be able to stop him. Do you know what? Here you are in the same game, Trey McBride.
Yeah, love that.
Trey McBride. It's a tight end position. If you're not going Kelce or Andrews, close your eyes, take a punt. Trey McBride.
McBride's 2,100. Just for your information, and Zach Ertz has been placed on IR.
Yeah.
Save all your money for your running backs, your wide receivers, your quarterback, and just punt a McBride.
Follow that advice, people. You've heard it there first. Because knowing Pez, he will be absolutely spot on with that. Mitch, what are you thinking?
I really like the McBride pick.
Don't blow smoke.
But for variation, there was another guy I really liked, who's Jonnu Smith at Atlanta. He's been a favourite target this year, and
don't sign on.
He's scored consistent points. He's never that expensive. Granted, he's not going to be the guy you pick to score you touchdowns, but he is a regular target. He's safe. He's a safe pair of hands, and he's heavily utilised by his team. And they've got a decent matchup, the Falcons, this week. I don't think they're Tennessee.
You're all wrong. You're all wrong. I hate to tell you, you're all wrong, as you always are. I'm always right.
On Pez's selection with McBride, I do really like that pick. They've been trying. They seem to always be trying to make him a factor in games. So with Ertz gone, I don't think they need to try as hard as they usually do to make him a factor. I think he's just going to be front and centre and get a lot more targets than usual. So yeah, McBride I love, but Jonnu Smith as well represents really good value.
Yeah, well, like
you say Taysom Hill, James.
I'm not saying Taysom Hill. I'm not going to die on that hill. No, I'm not saying Taysom Hill. I'm saying Dalton Schultz for 3,700 against Carolina. Yeah, you happy with that? Am I allowed? Can I carry on, Headmaster? Yeah, good lad. Ridiculous points in recent weeks. 16 in week 6. Obviously, they were on a bye week as well. 19.5 the week before that against Atlanta, and then 13 against Pittsburgh. So he's coming off 3 straight weeks of 13, 19, and 16 points. 7 receptions, or 7 targets, should I say, against New Orleans, 10 targets against Atlanta. Stroud is really starting to develop a connection with Dalton Schultz. He's scored a touchdown in 3 straight games for 3,700. Again, it's that issue of, well, he's the same price as Mark Andrews, so you'd surely go Mark Andrews over Dalton Schultz because, he's not a sexy name, Dalton Schultz, but he's producing, and like you say, the Cardinals have been quite good at stopping the tight end positions, and Carolina, well, their defense is pretty poor, and they seem to be kind of potentially having a bit of a fire sale maybe in the coming week or so. What is that locker room's mental state like? What's that defense's mental state like? So I quite fancy Dalton Schultz to continue his hot streak this week. So for 3,700, that seems a very smart way to spend your money. Flex options. I'll start with you. Who did I start with last time? I can't remember.
I'll start. I love a good flex.
Go on then, Pez. That's very normal.
To be a homer in a couple of Seahawks picks, what price is Noah Fant and Colby Parkinson, if you can find them quickly enough?
Fant is 2,100. Parkinson is 2,100.
A little nugget, what I saw on a Seahawks post was, in these last couple of games, Colby Parkinson is showing that he's actually the starting tight end at the moment. Out of all 3 of them, he's getting more as in the number 1 role, and he's being targeted more. This kind of ugly game might end up being a big tight end week. So a Noah Fant or Colby Parkinson as a hit and hope, so you can save all your money for your bigger positions.
Like it.
Mitch is just writing that down.
Yeah,
you can thank me after Sunday, Mitch.
I'm having a little flick through.
What are you liking, Mitch?
I'm liking. I mean, I feel like this week we've got so many running backs available that are representing really good value, and Justice Hill is one that I think. I know we said earlier. I think Pez mentioned that he thought Lamar was going to run the game and take the ball out of the running back's hands, especially in the red zone, which is always the case. But Justice Hill is a great. If you're running out of money for the flex spot, Justice Hill is a really, really good shout. I see that being really good value, but I also think that anyone looking to take a punt on, and this is going to be a hat trick for me with Seahawks Seahawks suggestions after Njigba and talking about Bobo, but I think DK is also, if you've got room for another wide receiver, DK fresh off a week's rest. I don't buy that he wasn't fit for last week. I think they've just appreciated that they've had him playing through injury for a long time, and they picked that game to just sit him down and just let him get right for the stretch of games we've got. So I think you're going to see a caged lion with DK Metcalf. They'll let him off the leash, and I think that deep threat is real against the Browns. So I think if you've got room for an extra wide receiver that you can plonk in that flex spot, DK Metcalf might be your guy.
Okay.
Can I just quickly jump in and say my flex wasn't the 2 Seahawks tight ends? Kind of. I listened to it. I was like, yeah, people might not listen next week if you leave it like that. Just wanted to clarify that.
Good disclaimer. Gurmeet, what are you thinking flex-wise this week?
I've got so many written down here. I'm struggling to choose, but I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle at 4,100. Yeah, and I'll tell you my reasoning with Waddle. What concerns me about him is he seems to get banged up every game. I was watching the Eagles game last weekend, and he went out with a back injury, and he came back in. But at that price, he's worth it because we know that Belichick loves to take out the main guy. and that's Tyreek. That'll always be Tyreek for the Dolphins. So Tyreek will still probably get his 100 yards anyway, but I think there could be a little bit more production for Waddle than usual. And at 4,100, again, I think with daily fantasy, you've got to temper your expectations and look at the prices. And if you put in some cheaper players, be happy that they might get you 14, 15 points. And that builds up a winning lineup. Then your captain or your quarterback or your star players can get, 25, 30, 35 points. If Waddle at that price in my flex gets me 15 points, he's done his job. So I'll go with Waddle at 4,100.
Okay, I like it. Here's an insight into the luck that I have with fantasy football. I was going to say Chris Olave last night and the day before. And then Chris Olave was rather silly this week, wasn't he? In that driving his car a little bit too quick. Now I'm not backing him for this week at all. His head's clearly not in the right place. So I like Jordan Addison, £3,500.
Oh my guy.
Did I? Well, you should have mentioned him. You should have mentioned him then, Pez. 15 points per game is what he is averaging this season. He's quietly, and well, not quietly anymore because people are starting to wake up to him. But before the last week or two, he was quietly having a really good rookie season, and still is. He is potentially one of the best receivers to come out the draft in recent years, in my opinion. He's fitting right into that offense, and I know the Vikings and stuff are in a bit of a weird situation, but it's not stopping Jordan Addison. The play of Kirk Cousins is not detrimenting Jordan Addison, nothing like that. The guy at 31 points last week. I mean, just ridiculous. 123 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a killer in the slot there in Minnesota. And obviously, filled the boots of Justin Jefferson going on IR stoutly. So he's getting plenty of looks while Jefferson isn't there, and he's taking full advantage. So 3,500 against a Green Bay defense, which can be quite hit and miss. I'll take that in what's going to be a really good rivalry game there in Lambeau Field. Any other options on the flex?
Yeah, can I just actually chuck some actual proper ones out?
Go on then.
Hollywood Brown.
Okay.
What price is he? I don't know if he might be expensive because he's technically their one, but it is the Cardinals.
Is 3,300.
So you got wide receiver Brown, Kendrick Bourne. There was another one on this list, but I can't find. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Don't be scared of going for Ken Walker because he's a beast and he'll just do anything he wants because he's amazing. Another one to watch out for. Watch the injury reports before you make your thing. But at this current moment in time, the Browns don't actually have a running back because they're all questionable. The only one they've got left standing is Pierre Strong Jr. And I can only imagine he is tiny in price.
He's tiny in price. He's quite tiny in stature as well, isn't he, Pierre Strong?
That's why I chucked that in there.
Oh, good lad. 2,500.
Perfect. And Rashee Rice for the Chiefs. That was my other wide receiver because he looks like he's making himself the wide receiver 1 for that team. And I reckon he'll still be a small price because he's still growing.
He is 3,300.
Perfect.
Yeah, I like Rashee Rice. That's a really good shout, actually. That's another good flex shout. Captains, I'm going to start with you, Mitch, as we finish off on the most important pick of every week. For anyone that doesn't know, your captain scores you double points, so it's really important that you nail your captains. Most people who win, pretty much every person who wins in this game has a captain that scores good points. Obviously, last week Travis Kelce was most people's captains. Mark Andrews scored well for some people as well. Is it as straightforward as Kelce this week for your captain, Mitch?
Kinda. I mean, I'm gonna enter multiple teams this week. Spoiler alert. And as I do every week. I'm gonna enter multiple teams, and Kelsey's definitely going to be captain of at least one or two of them. McCaffrey will feature because I feel like if you have multiple teams, McCaffrey's playing, he needs to be one of them. But the guy that I think is really going to have. Who was it playing Denver?
The Chiefs.
Yeah. I don't want to go McCaffrey, but I feel like I have to go McCaffrey.
It's hard not to.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I'm going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons here. I'm going to come up with a different one.
Oh, go on.
AJ Brown against the Commanders. That is great value. That is great value for a captain as well. 6,500 for a guy you're relying on for double points, and he has been absolute money for weeks on end. He may not top out at the 45, 50 point mark that you hope for with a captain, but he is regularly in that mid 30s point, which once doubled up puts you in the pay dirt with the money positions on Fantasy Gameday app. So that is not a flashy pick. I think it's a reliable pick.
You're turning into a bit of an AJ Brown stan, aren't you? Eminem's getting... Yeah.
But did I say him last week?
You say him every week.
You've already done this twice.
He's not wrong, is he? He's unstoppable.
He mentioned us
You've already done this twice. You can't tell me I do it every week if I've done it twice.
It doesn't matter.
You dropped the AJ.
Don't change what isn't broke, or don't fix what's not broke.
You came to me first to pick, and I picked AJ Brown.
Yeah. I'm not against the pick. I'm just like, someone's clearly in the back pocket of AJ Brown here. Pez, what are you thinking of captain?
I reckon me and Gurmeet might have the same person. We had the same person last time. Oh, well, not then. I think
you don't know yourself, do you?
No, I do. I'm just having a quick look to see if I want to change it.
All right.
But I think I'm just sold on. I just look at the matchup and I think Lamar Jackson's going to destroy the Cardinals all by himself. So I'm going to say Lamar Jackson. I don't know if it's wise to put it on a quarterback.
Can't do
it. You can't.
Can you not?
Another great thing you've outlined, actually. Whoever's not familiar with it, you can't have.
That's what I'm here for.
Back as your captain, yeah. So
that's what I'm here for.
Very own Mythbuster.
Right. Well, does someone else want to go out quickly after?
Gurmeet, do you want to fire away your captain ideas?
I mean, mine was going to be AJ Brown because he's been unguardable. He just looks different to other people on a football field. 125 yards, 5 games running, which is an all-time record. James, I know you said that Cooper Kupp burnt you last week.
I did.
I have when it comes to daily fantasy, I personally don't believe you should chase last week's points. AJ Brown doesn't count. But I also think that there's regression, and I don't think a guy like Cooper Kupp is going to have 2 bad games in a row. I also believe, as you know, with my Devontae narrative last week, that there's the squeaky wheel, and he's got to bounce back, doesn't he? Kupp has to bounce back this week. And his price is reflected on the fact that he had a poor game last week. So let's give him another try. Cooper Kupp is my captain.
He very rarely has bad back-to-back games, but he slapped me in the face a little bit last week, so I'm not ready to put my faith back in him just yet. Mine is someone that you'll probably appreciate, Gurmeet. I think I'm going to go with Breece Hall as my captain shout for this week. I think he is going to run all over the New York Giants. £6,300, by the way, very decent, very fair price. 20 points last week, 28.4 against Denver. 22 attempts rushing against Denver, 12 against Philadelphia, obviously 5 receptions as well. He's getting the Jets just get him the ball. You'll know Gurmeet, whenever he's healthy, whenever he's on the field, he gets the ball however you get it to him. So in a PPR league and against a pretty poor Giants team, and especially against stopping the run, as we well know, I fancy Breece Hall to run all over the Giants this week. So that is my captain shout. Pez, have you had a think?
Mine's going to be, I'm going to follow the trend of Addison last week against the Niners. I'm going to say Jamar Chase. I'm going to say I reckon, I fancy that. What price is he?
Chase, I will get that for you, is 6,700.
Yeah, week off. Joe Burrow looked a lot healthier against us. He didn't seem to have any troubles with his calf. Chase started well, and we're better. Our secondary is better than the Niners, so Chase is going to have a good game.
Yeah. I can see that. Like you say, again, another receiver that very rarely has back-to-back quiet games. You can't keep a talented receiver like Jamar Chase down for too long. So I like the Jamar Chase shout as well. Anyone that we haven't mentioned at any position that anyone would like to give a quick little shout out before we wrap it up? Is there anyone we've missed?
There's one player I also like at running back who's a value pick. And that's Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay.
The last couple of weeks, he's got, I think, 18 and 16 points. They're playing against Miami. They're going to be playing from behind, and he gets a ton of catches from Mac Jones. So I most definitely wouldn't put him as my captain, but as my RB2, quite happily slot Ramondre in at 3,100. Same price as Jonathan Taylor, by the way.
Good shout. Real workhorse. Go on, Pez.
Falcons have been looking good on defense, but what price is Derrick Henry at the moment?
I was going to mention Derrick Henry earlier because I think he's about to have his best game of the year.
Because
for the Ravens when he gets traded.
Yeah. Spoil it.
Who were they
6,300 Derrick Henry is, by the way.
It's probably a bit too high then. I wouldn't say just yet, until you see it. I won't pay that much probably for him when there's other value out there, but I just feel like it sounds like it's going to be Levis, even though like it's not Levis. It is Levis. It's not Levis. Even if it's Malik Willis or Levis, I just think it's not going to be them. It's just going to be the Derrick Henry ran offense as far as he can carry him. So he's going to be catching, he's going to be running. I think if anything, he'll probably have one of his highest catching games because they're just going to dump off. He's just going to be like a safety valve, like Alvin Kamara. And you could really rack up them PPR points with a guy like him.
Unless they give that role to Tajay Spears. He's been looking pretty good this season in that role. But yeah,
that's a good shout. And then to bounce off that, Tajay Spears is a really good cheap option. So, like, we're giving it you all.
We covered it all angles.
Everyone in the app.
Yeah, there's we give you stuff for all your big rollers and your bargain bucket people. We give it to everyone.
It's so hard though, isn't it? Because there's no team on bye. You've just got literally, and their early and late slate has got so many big teams in. You just like, where do you even start? So good luck, everyone.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. I hope we've offered some clarity. I hope we've given you some tips and tricks this week, some insight, as I'm sure you will all absolutely ignore everything we've said and go with your gut, because we'll probably be completely wrong. But that is the nature of fantasy and sticking your neck out on the line. I'm sure we'll hit on a few. We can't have. Pez pretty much rattled off every receiver that was possible, or running back, whichever one it was. So I'm sure he'll have got one or two right in there. But for now, go to fantasygameday.app if you haven't already. For those of you that already have, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying the app and wish you all the best this week. But if you haven't yet, go to fantasygameday.app. Download the app from either the App Store or Google Play, whichever mobile device you are on. Download the app, register an account, use the referral code WTC, and that will mean that once you enter your first lineup for £7.50, you will get a free lineup on the house, which means you can continue playing and potentially win big money for free. So yeah, it's a fantastic app. We're all loving it. We're all enjoying it, whether we're finishing 100th or 10th, as you, I'm sure you were, Mitch, at some point last week. I'll let you work out where I finished. But no, thank you as always for listening. Thank you, Gurmeet. Thank you, Pez. Thank you, Mitch. We will see you all next week to look forward to week 9. Is it week 8 this week? I'm losing track of it. It's week 8 this week, isn't it? Yeah, we look forward to week 9 then next week. So we'll be back for that. But for now, stay tuned. Follow Fantasy Gameday. Just give a quick shout out to the socials again, Gurmeet.
It's at fantasy_gameday, and the website, as you said, fantasygameday.app. And you can download from the website. There's the link there for Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And the top 20% of entrants win prizes. So we had, I think, 31 last week out of 147 win prizes. So we've definitely narrowed the gap between the person who wins and the person who comes in the 20th percentile. So that's the way we've purposely designed the payout structure.
Yeah, great odds to win some money playing some fancy football. There's nothing really better than that. So please do go and do that. Go and follow us all up on our social medias, and we'll see you next week. But for now, stay tuned and go Hawks. For
go
everyone
Hawks.
other than Gurmeet.
Go Hawks.
Go Jets. Go Hawks.